Okay, are we ready?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, man?
What's going on, dude? How you doing?
Hey, good. I'm good. Come here, man. Here, sit down. Sit down.
Hey, oh, thanks, man.
What's up?
Oh,
Yeah.
man, it is really loud in here.
Yeah, it's actually my favorite place.
The sushi kiosk in the mall is your favorite place.
Yeah, man. For meetings, man. I like the stimuli. It's
Oh,
loud.
I get it, man. It's
Yeah,
cool. It's
the
cool, man.
energy.
So how have you been?
I'm good, man. How are you? Hey, you've seen the podcast, right? Have you had a chance?
Well, of course, man. I've been helping you with the intro music and everything. Of course, I've seen the podcast.
I know, but you're a busy guy. I don't want to, bother you.
No bother, man. I listen to it. I put it on at work. When I'm sitting there
Okay,
just
cool.
hanging out and just listening.
So,
to it.
what do you think? What's your favorite episode, man? What's your favorite one?
I mean, there's only like, 2 of them, so you can't. It's hard to pick a favorite, It's
Wait,
I like them
what?
all. I like them all, man. It's hard to pick a favorite. There's only a couple of them so far. So.
Hey, there's gonna be 4 of them.
I mean, a couple, a few. It's all. It's just it's hard to pick a.
Whoa! Hey, man. Hey, have
What's up?
you listened to the fucking podcast, bro?
Yeah, man. I just told you. I listened to the podcast. It's good stuff, man.
Oh yeah? What's the set look like?
Like your basement.
You piece of shit!
What?
You
calling names over
Fucking
here.
piece of
Hey,
shit!
relax, man. Just
I
relax.
can't believe you.
Relax.
I can't believe you.
Can't believe what? What can't you believe?
You haven't listened to the fucking podcast.
Of course I've listened to the podcast.
I thought you were my friend, man.
Of course I'm your friend, man. I'm your friend. I'm your cousin. I listen to your podcast. You don't need to cry.
I'm just saying, I'm just a really emotional time.
You don't just settle down. Settle down. Hey man, it's we're your favorite. We're your favorite.
Fuck off.
Okay, I won't
Don't
touch you.
touch me.
Okay, I won't. Okay. Let's focus on the fucking
Don't
tuna
fucking
roll.
touch me, man.
We got tuna rolls. We have some tuna rolls. There's some fucking sriracha, even though who the fuck uses that on sushi? I don't know, but it's there.
Everybody, man, all right? They do it here. It's special.
Okay, all right, man. It's your favorite place to eat. Let's just relax and eat some fucking sushi.
Listen, I know it's in a mall. It's weird.
It's
all
okay.
right, but I like
it's
my
all right,
favorite.
man. It's all right. I'm just I'm stationed in really a small place. I'm not used to mall sushi. It's okay.
Dude, subscribe. Did you at least subscribe?
Did I?
Get
What?
your phone. I know you
I don't.
didn't
I
subscribe.
don't.
Get
Well,
your
yeah.
phone
I
out.
mean, I don't really subscribe to things on YouTube. So.
Come on, get it
All
out.
right,
It's
yeah,
whatever.
I got it.
It's fine.
I got you. Don't worry about it. Let me pull the app real quick.
Fine.
So do I just put like Paul Johnson in the search bar, or
What do you mean?
what do you mean? What I mean? I just, like, what do I put in the search bar on YouTube? Do I put Paul Johnson or Faith or what do I?
You
what do I
put the name of the podcast.
Oh, so undertones, right?
You fucking god.
What's wrong?
Horse
What's wrong?
shit.
What's wrong?
I can't fucking believe you, man. I can get up. Get out of my way.
Okay, fine.
I'm leaving, all right? You didn't fucking listen to the podcast. It's
I have.
Fuck
I
you,
that's what I
man.
have. Oh my god.
It's blood, ash, and oil, asshole.
Okay, I get it. Fucking blood ash and whatever the fuck. Who the fuck eats sushi from a mall kiosk? I wonder if there's a Wendy's here.
Welcome to episode 4 of Blood, Ash, and Oil. What did you think of our new intro?
That was awesome. I just don't get how you guys do that. Like,
What do you
it's
mean?
so good.
Is it really?
Yeah, like, how do you know? Do you bring up a picture of the set? Like, how do you know what you're going to say? I just don't know how you improvise all of that.
I came up with the scenario, and then we sit down and we start. We got sound effects of like a mall, and then we made
I
the
didn't even
music.
notice, like, yeah.
Yeah, there's people talking and stuff like a
Yeah,
mall,
wow.
and then we made the music for it, like elevator music, and then we just start building. As he's doing that, as he's making the music and doing all that, I'm thinking of the scenario, and then we have like key points that we want to make. And then every time we do a take, there's new stuff or funnier stuff, and then we change it, and then we do it again. So,
Bravo.
thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you again to Jimmy for the intro. So take it away. What are we doing?
So today we are discussing how both of us got into the tattoo industry. We had a couple of people ask for this. So we're going to stick to the tattooing side and not like not really much of, our story. So if you want a more personal side of that, then you can comment and ask for it. As of right now.
Yeah, we'll probably do that at some point in the future.
Just apprenticeships, tattoo industry stuff.
It's just to kind of give people a little bit more perspective on the podcast, I guess, because we had a couple people ask about like the story of how we started tattooing. So we're going to just briefly kind of go through that story just to kind of give an idea. Well, I guess I'll start then. Broadly, I started out on my own because I ordered a kit offline, essentially.
And this is 2006-ish?
Something like probably 2007-ish.
Okay.
Something like that. It might have been 2008. Who knows? But I was still working. And I was accumulating clientele, and then I quit my job, and then I ended up getting an apprenticeship at Don's. I was there for a couple of years, and then I moved to Skin of a Different Color, and then we moved farther north than Aurora area, and then I was in the private studio situation for a while. And then last year, I guess you'd have to say the year before, right? I started working at Atmosphere. So that's like the broader timeline. But how I started, or at least how my apprenticeship started, is a little bit more of an interesting story. So I went to school for machining. And I just realized that, working entry-level machining jobs, that I wasn't going to be able to do it. There's no way I was going to be able to be a person that shows up to a job. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way,
I just decided around like 18, 19, I'm not going to be a person that shows up to a job.
I'm telling you, there was something in me like
Paul Johnson.
I would go to work, I would show up, I'd be putting a part in the machine and running it, and it was agony. I was suffering being there, and just the thought of a future, like things I knew when I was standing in these places and doing these jobs, that things would not move quickly enough for me to be satisfied. I mean, I'm sure I could be satisfied in a job like that, but, there was nothing I can do to move myself forward. It was all based on, the bosses and a structure and a ladder,
Yeah, you're not responsible. Oh, you mean you're responsible for your own success, but it's dependent on
different.
the whole system versus
right.
Being basically, being a tattooist is sort of like being an entrepreneur.
So I'm a piece of shit, essentially. When you're that age, you have no life skills.
Oh, I mean, still, right? No?
Fuck you, you fucking bitch.
Oh, okay. So just when you were 18, okay.
So I'm working at this job called Ball Corporation. They make the mason jars, the ball mason jars. And I worked at a plant in, I think it's Batavia, maybe not, that we made, Heinz ketchup bottles, and it was a plastic injection mold shop. So
not the glass ones. You made
no,
the plastic
they
ones.
didn't make it wasn't a glass place there. It was a, put that over there. It was a plastic injection mold place, and I'd worked at a couple of places. That's like machinist adjacent,
Oh, so it's not true machining?
No, I wasn't making things out of metal, but in those places you'd have a portion of the place. It's mechanical things, and you'd fabricate to fix or create things to make the line move or whatever. So I'm working 12-hour overnight shifts. I'm talking from 7 at night to 7 in the morning.
Did that fit your personality well? Like, 'cause you're such a night owl.
No.
Okay.
It was absolutely terrible. 12-hour shifts. Anybody that's worked those hours knows. 12-hour overnight shifts, it is brutal. It is fucking brutal. So every 5 or 6 hours or 4 hours, whatever it is, you would rotate on the line, especially being a lower-end person, which I was. I started working there through a temp agency. So that shows you. Fuck you. Fuck you. So you would move around the line every 5 or 6 hours to a new spot, and some spots were worse than others. And you'd have different responsibilities for each spot. And the story of me tattooing and my apprenticeship is I'm sitting at this job, I'm tattooing on the side, I have some clientele and stuff, doing absolutely terrible tattoos. And my job at that time was sitting on a stool, a hard stool. I remember it's like a fucking wooden hard stool with like tape on it, like super uncomfortable. And I'm sitting there, and I'm not even allowed to have headphones in because it's a work environment and it's loud. Okay, so you're talking, 5 or 6 giant machines and their own lines.
I would die. I hate sounds like that.
Well, here's the thing. All those machines and all those lines working at the same time, there's a rhythm to it because
oh my god! So then it would get
there's
like
a
that
chaos.
weird...
Like it sounds like chaos, but if you're there for more than an hour,
so it's like when you figured out the loop in your white noise machine.
Yes.
Oh, that's hellish.
Yes. So it's hypnotizing, and you're not allowed to fall asleep. You're not allowed to even wear headphones.
Wait, let me get this straight. You're not allowed to fall asleep at your job?
Fuck you.
This is crazy. I mean, what kind of fucking job is this?
Okay, all right.
You're not able to fall asleep.
All right.
The bullshit
Whatever.
job you're at.
But I'm sitting there on this stool, and I'm in front of a conveyor belt, and on the other side of this conveyor belt, there's a really bright light, and bottles, Arizona iced tea bottles, to be exact.
But what are they the metal ones?
No, they're plastic.
There's
the
plastic
big
ones?
jugs.
Oh, those, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The armored Palmer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going by this light like this.
That's really fast.
Yeah, they're coming out of this machine really fast.
Do you just knock them off if they're... How do you do it?
So my job is they're clear bottles, and the light, it goes by the light, and you're trying to look at every bottle to see if there's any specks of different colored plastic or impurities in the plastic, or if it did a mold and it came out and it ballooned up or something, it was deformed, and you knock it off into this big bin. And you'd have times where things would back up, and it was your job to kind of clear the line real quick and make sure everything's still going so that it didn't back up. You had to stop the machine. And again, they're coming out of this machine like this. I mean, it's fast.
Yeah.
So you can imagine a light on the other side of these bottles. Flash, 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 flash. A bright light in your fucking eyeballs.
So if you have epilepsy, you definitely don't want that job.
So, and you're talking for hours. Hours.
And you're like not like there's no way to talk to other people, right? Because like
no, it's just fuck. It's just
oh my god,
loud.
This sounds like hell.
Not that you'd want to talk to any
literal
other
hell.
miserable fuck that was there either, So I'm sitting there, and these bottles are going by, and I don't know, a couple hours in, I just, all of a sudden, I just stop paying attention. I just start daydreaming. I stop paying attention, and I'm just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, I'm not even looking at the bottles, and I'm not thinking about doing any of this. I'm not deciding to do any of this. I just stood up, and I walked out of the door. The door that was directly in front of me. So, not thinking at all, like a zombie, I just stood up, and I just went. I walked right out of the doors.
Did that sound happen too?
Yeah, it was a really little door, and I had to fit through. So, so I get up, I leave all of my stuff. I have like a locker there. I have my keys in my wallet. I don't even have my key card to get back in the building. And the cold air hits me at like 3 o'clock in the morning or whenever it was, and the door's shut behind me, and then I like realized what I just did. And at this point, I don't have my key card, and I'm a temp. So it's like if I turn around and go back in there, or if I have to like bang on the door or something, I have to explain, But nothing in my mind was telling me to go back. I was panicking because I just walked out of this job, and not even thought about it. But also, there was nothing that was going to make me go back. So I was like, okay, I got in my car, and I started my car, and then I started to have this warm, fuzzy feeling inside. I was like, just the chaos that's happening inside.
know,
like a Laverne and Shirley situation with like bottles piling up and people running around.
And they just have no idea what happened to the person that was sitting there. Maybe somebody saw you walk out, but I wonder if that's a story that those people tell for the rest of their lives about the one day when a guy just fucking got up and walked out and never came back.
I mean, I bet there were people there that really weren't even sure that I was real to begin with, because I was a temp there. I was you rotate in the line, wait, was there a guy there even? So,
Holy shit.
So I immediately drove to Denny's. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I sat down and I started drawing because I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna do this tattoo thing for real, I gotta get an apprenticeship. I gotta stop doing what I'm doing.
And you had tried to get an apprenticeship before.
Yeah, I tried to walk in an apprenticeship before. Got treated like shit. Those people are still around in the tattoo industry actually, and it wasn't. It wasn't a good experience, and so I'm there drawing, and I come up with a plan. If I can't get an apprenticeship within a certain period of time, I was going to become a cop. That's what was in my head. I don't know whether I would have been able to do that. I'm sure I would have, but I was like. I was even, thinking about, okay, a police academy, that whole thing. It was a real option in my head. So that's essentially the story. It happened. It was like a freak thing, but it pushed me over the edge to do, like a lot of situations that I sort of end up in, it's I have to succeed. I put myself in a situation where I have to succeed.
You burn your boats.
Like this podcast, purchasing all this shit and going balls deep into it. There's a sense of having to succeed. Not as much as
please subscribe.
As much
now's a good time. Please subscribe.
Not as much as that scenario. Back then, times were just so fucking desperate. It was such a very unsettling time in my life. And
being like 18 to 22 is kind of like the worst time in anybody's life.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Unless you're in college and you're just partying, then probably 22 to 28 is the worst time of your life.
I mean, I had moved out, and I was living with roommates. I was living in a basement with a mattress on the floor, covered in fucking centipedes.
No money.
No money.
Couldn't
It
even
smelled
eat.
like rotten eggs down there. It was a barren wasteland of a life. I had no money at all. I had a lot of help from the people that were around me, my roommates and stuff, the people from Evil Intentions, the haunted house, which is still going strong.
Because you
but
were
I'm not
involved. To put that into context, you were involved in the haunted house stuff while you were doing your machining stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Doing
yeah.
art director. That's a loosely
Yeah.
used art director.
That's what I
of
told.
Evil
That's what I tell
Intentions.
people when I don't want to explain the whole situation, because everybody was involved with the artistic stuff. I just say I was the art director. Yeah, it went from it was a very hopeless time, and I had to tell my dad that I quit my job. I didn't tell him until after I got an apprenticeship, and well, I guess I should go into that. So the first place I walked into was Don's Downtown Ink in Aurora. I probably Googled a tattoo shop and went in there, and Don was there, and I talked to him, and he said that Mike Figueroa, the other guy that was working at the shop, he was just talking about maybe getting an apprentice yesterday.
Destiny.
And he's like, why don't you come back tomorrow and talk to him, because he's going to be the one, apprenticing you or whatever. I don't know what the situation is. So I showed up. I showed him my drawings. I showed him the tattoos that I did, all terrible. And then we started talking about tattooing and what it's like, and how to go about becoming a tattooist. And then after a while, we were talking, and after a while, I was like, so did I get the apprenticeship, or? And that's kind of how it went. There wasn't a like, okay, call me back in 2 weeks.
You
or
didn't sign a contract.
I didn't sign a contract.
Get a
I mean, I did it
uniform.
when I became an employee there,
You signed
but
a contract?
well, I became an employee. Don, at the time, nobody was really doing that, but Don was doing that for tax purposes. So, yeah, and then I started. I stopped tattooing. I started doing normal apprentice stuff.
Which is, some people don't know what an apprentice does. So
Cleaning, setting up, breaking down, just
watching people tattoo.
Watching people
asking
tattoo,
questions.
drawing, working with clients and customers, and just really keeping your eyes open and taking everything in and how tattooing was. I didn't know that every shop is so much different than one
It is
another.
so weird.
And
it's so weird how every shop is like you can both be tattooists and having a completely different experience of tattooing based on what shop you're at. It's bizarre.
Yeah. But that was the beginning of the seed of hope, and there wasn't that much hope. It was a small seed, but it was something, and it took me a long time to show up at home with a fucking wad of cash in my pocket and be like, see, to show my dad, because he had my dad is very supportive, and he had hope in me, but he just wished I would have fucking kept my fucking job, and I should have, but I couldn't do it. I fucking hated it. And then as time went on, I started making more money. I see. more and whatnot. But all right, let's 1, 2, 3. So yeah, so that's the story of how I started tattooing.
So, before your apprenticeship, how ddid your very first tattoo go?
Well, I got the kit, and it came with a DVD, which is hilarious. I mean, that's for people that aren't in the tattoo industry or know anything about tattooing. Buying a kit is hilarious. Buying a kit with a DVD in it, that's super hilarious. Because there's no way that DVD is any good, you know? So I sit down to watch this DVD, and I get about halfway through it, and I'm like, I think I got it. I think I got it.
This is so Paul Johnson. Watch half the DVD, read half the instructions to things, and just go for it.
Yeah. So I turn and look at my girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, you want a tattoo? And she's like, okay. So I set up just like, in the DVD. And, you got to think, at this point, I'm not even sure how a tattoo machine works. I'm putting it together, and I'm like, looking at like the DVD case of the guy holding the machine, and I'm like, okay, so the thing goes in there, and then how much does it stick out? I don't know. It seems to be this much.
Yeah, I wonder if they tell you about like how much to stick out the needle in this.
Yeah, they did.
But you probably didn't get to that part.
No. So I set up the machine. I'm already pretty cautious about bloodborne pathogen stuff, even though I was probably doing everything wrong. I was still.
You were at least cognizant.
I was thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, I don't have any way to make a stencil. So
was that part of the video? Making a stencil?
No.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I can't. I was nervous to draw on her with a marker or a pen because I didn't want to tattoo it and then push that ink into the skin and have her have an allergic reaction or die or some shit. I didn't know.
You kill your first girlfriend.
Yeah.
By giving her a tattoo.
So
she's alive and well.
My first girlfriend, but the first tattoo. So I'm doing like this little Batman symbol on her hip, and I go to start tattooing.
Wait, so how did you get the stencil there? Was there a stencil, or you just decided to freehand this out of nowhere?
Okay, so yeah. So that's an important part. I freehanded.
Oh my god!
Think about this. So
there's
as
no
a tattooist
stencil,
now,
no marker.
As a
there's bare skin, and you're
bare
just gonna
skin
fucking tattoo
on the hip.
Oh my!
In that soft tissue right there, the stretchy tissue. Saddam.
I wish. Go ahead, because I know part of the story. So go ahead. What happens?
So, she's laying down on the coffee table in the living room. The coffee table in the living room.
Don't do this at home.
And
literally, don't do this at home.
I think I'm like clever because I got my whole kit, and I got like a Rubbermaid drawer system with all the stuff in it, and I'm set up on that.
Is this at your dad's house?
No, this was at my mom's house in McHenry.
Were you living there at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to have been. So I start tattooing, and I get a couple of lines in. Very, nervously just beating sweat, trying to make this, Batman symbol on this on Jell-O, essentially. It's like Jell-O right there.
And the worst place to tattoo.
I wipe away the excess ink, which is puzzling to me. You put the needle to skin, and then the ink disperses, and then you can't see anything. That's how tattooing works. And I wipe away after going through a lot of it, trying to not mess up.
I just don't even. So you were just like literally, you probably have the Batman symbol memorized in your head. Like, I don't know what it looks like, and you're just fucking and just making that shit up.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not even. You're doing this. You're giving me way more credit.
You're not even.
You
were probably just like across the room, like.
Well, I didn't. I remember thinking, well, stretching it is going to distort it, so I don't want to stretch it, distort it, draw it, and then let go, and then have it be wonky. So, I tattoo, and then I wipe away, and nothing had happened. There was no marks. The needle was sticking out, enough. Well.
Yeah, see, the problem is if you don't stretch the skin, it's amazing how it is actually really easy to tattoo and not make a mark at all.
Yeah, that can happen.
That's actually when you're first starting to tattoo and you don't know the pressure, that's super easy to do.
Yeah.
Like, I did that for fucking
So that skin like
3 months,
that
basically.
right there, like we said, is so not rubbery. It's like Jello.
Jello.
So
it
it just
pushed away.
you're just taking. It's like going like this with a needle. You're just pushing skin, and yeah. And then I wiped it away, and then I think she stood up and she's looking at it, and she's like, "Where is it?" And I'm like,
That's what she said. That's what she said.
I'm like, maybe I should finish the DVD. You know.
What is so disappointing is that tattoo is not there today. Like, can you imagine how fucking terrible that tattoo would be? And
she does have tattoos though by me that
I know,
are.
but it's just disappointing that this terrible stencil-free tattoo.
Like she's got
there.
on her back, her lower back to the right, like more like hip area. She's got Guido. You know what Guido is? Guido is the little forklift guy from Cars.
Wait, that movie was out?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that movie came out that far.
He's a little forklift, and he talks like this. He's a little Guido.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Is it terrible?
Probably. I remember that being a real great tattoo. I remember doing that and being like, yeah, that was a good one.
We should
get a picture of it.
We should like get a collection of like some of your first tattoos.
Yeah.
That'd be hilarious.
If you're listening to this, send me a picture of it. Send me a picture of it.
And hopefully you have like, you probably don't because it was MySpace back then and nobody's pictures carried over. But it'd be awesome because like once something's 12 years old, you know, like you don't really know what it looked like.
She could probably tell me the year too.
So
she could probably tell me the year because she's not retarded, and I'm retarded.
We have never known how long Paulie has tattooed
because
he has like no recollection of
sense
time.
of time or
none. It's insane. It's the weirdest thing. Oh, she's jumping off the stairs again.
Oh,
that's hilarious. Anyway, Sable. We should have her do that because like it is so bizarre that we just people ask all the time, how long have you been tattooing? And we go 10 to 13 years.
Yeah, I just don't know.
So we should get that answer from
her.
Yeah,
all I need is one person to be in a time and a place, and then I know the rest of the timeline. But yeah, so let us know if you're listening. So let's talk about how you started now.
Okay, so I started tattooing. Well, we had Sable, and so this is July 2015. We have Sable. I'm planning on.
She knows the month and shit.
I even know the day.
Yeah.
So I'm planning to stay home with her. I was a vet tech prior, and the job was an hour away, and I always just wanted to stay home for the first few years. Spoiler alert, it's kind of terrible, and then I desperately wanted out. So for some reason, Sable's like 3 weeks old, and you get the idea in your head for me to start tattooing. And I don't remember why. I mean, neither of us were sleeping at all for like 2 years straight, so my memory of things at that time is really bad. Like, I have no idea why I started tattooing.
I knew that I could probably teach you how to be a competent tattooist in order to make money. I knew that you were kind of lost after having the baby, mostly just because you're having to deal with this baby.
Well, I was kind of lost in life before that. Like, I was just kind of working jobs and, like...
Just going to school.
I loved doing the vet tech stuff, but at least that's what I remember.
You didn't have a sense of purpose.
Yeah, like, I just had... I was working those jobs that were never going to lead anywhere. Like, being a vet tech, I didn't make, like, any money, and I also kind of didn't have... I didn't want to commit to getting a degree that pigeonholed me so much, so I was never going to make any money. So it was like, what do I do? And
in stark contrast to my path, which has seemingly been so...
committed.
Committed
and steady.
What's the word I'm looking for? It seems like I had built-in purpose.
Yeah, it was like we were absolute opposites. Like, I floated around, flitted job to job, interest to interest, hobby to hobby.
And I was
and you
carrying
were
a
just-
torch. I was carrying a torch for an idea, which was tattooing and art, and I had always been for a while. You know,
the entire time I knew you tattooed,
And
it was kind of weird because like you literally, you know, if you get into tattooing, it seems like very few people leave, and it's like that if you decide to tattoo, that's your career, and you just do that forever.
yeah. I mean, some
So-
people drop off. You know,
Some people do, but it doesn't seem like compared to other. It's
some
like
people
almost
don't make it through their apprenticeship, and then fewer people stop actually afterwards.
Yeah, it seems almost like becoming a doctor. Like if people get their medical degree, generally they stick with it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know of any doctors that stop being doctors. I'm sure there are, but exception to the rule.
But yeah, so I had such purpose in life, and I was driven by that purpose, and you didn't have that, and I think
I know purpose.
I was like,
passion.
you know, I could give that if I could just get you into that place where you can be a competent tattooist, even if you didn't become a tattoo artist in the greater sense, that you would have this job where like you can excel at, and I could help you, and you had a goal and things like that. And then, but you started, and then we realized that it was a terrible idea to try to learn a skill
when you have a baby,
a 4-month-old baby, or
not even
however,
4 months. She was like literally 3 weeks old because it was hot.
which it's a joke.
I mean,
But
it was
she
it
did-
was such a weird, terrible idea.
But she did 2 tattoos.
yeah, I tattooed a microscope on you,
Yep,
and then I tattooed like a
silhouette of a microscope.
silhouette of a microscope. Yeah. I just started off with like realism, just jumped right in. So a silhouette of a microscope on you, and then a silhouette of like a African tree on my sister.
Yeah,
And they both
and
went well.
and she did a great job. That's
Yeah.
the one thing about you that is good, and the thing that I think I recognize is that you have a high tolerance for focus, and you're very critical of yourself.
Too critical. Yeah.
Yeah, too critical turns out. But
That's kind of what happened the first time is like, first off, my hormones were crazy. I was never sleeping. So like my brain was like, there was no way to help the problems I was having. And I was so hypercritical of everything I was doing that I just ate myself alive.
yeah, I mean,
basically.
she was having all these emotional things going on because of the baby and not sleeping, and that amplified the other problems that she had before. So I was, if I could help eliminate one of those things, because that needed to be taken care of anyway. Remember, I even suggested, and there was the idea of you becoming a firearms instructor, because at the time we were kind of just getting into
That was after. That was quite
that.
a bit. That was maybe like a year later.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
After these
Yeah,
did the first tattoo?
Because when TT started watching Sable, she was like 10 months old.
Okay, all right. Well, that was another thing that I tried
And
to
then-
push you into doing, because I understand. I know it's like a polycentric activity, but at least like I could stay motivated. If you pay,
I was a I was a boat without a sail, so like
Yeah.
you just kept trying to shove me into
Right.
any open door that you saw, you pushed me into.
I just knew that as soon as you accomplished something of value, no matter what it was, as long as you worked hard at something and then accomplished something, you'd get that first taste of the accomplishment, and then you would get a sense of like how you want to feel all the time.
See, that was how it kind of worked for Paulie, is that having committed to a career, he knew what made a successful, not necessarily a tattoo, just a successful career in the constantly setting goals, achieving things.
Well, I
feeling
didn't know that.
good.
I didn't know that in the larger sense of what that's right or success. I just knew that, satisfaction for yourself, just trying to build up your self-worth, and just knowing that you can do something. If you tried, you can do something.
And my problem is that I was a dabbler, so I would get into things, and I do everything kind of 120% when I start anything. Like,
Yeah.
I go way over the top with it, and so I'd go 0 to 60, and then I would eventually plateau, get bored, be like, oh well, this isn't for me then. Like, this isn't the thing. Like, it was during that time, I feel like things are mellowing out a little bit, but it was during that time where it was just like, find your passion, like everything on social media.
Which is bullshit.
And it was just bullshit and misleading, and I just kept, whenever I would lose passion in something, I'd be like, well, this isn't the thing.
That's one of the biggest things, is the disconnect between the thing and what the thing looks like. That's a big problem with tattooists now, because they have an idea of what a tattooist is, and they're trying to work towards that goal. And what they're saying is the stuff at the tip of the iceberg. So they're seeing, the lifestyle. They're seeing how fucking cool they are. They're seeing all that shit, and they're seeing the social media stuff, and they're pursuing all the social media stuff, but they don't fucking see the other part of the equation. And they don't do the other part of the equation because they're trying to mimic what they see and get success, just like anybody wants success. And that's not, you can't do that. You have to get down and dirty, and which is the same thing with anything. Like, same thing with parenting, You have to fucking get down in the fucking trenches before you see any results. And it's hard, and it's taxing on your fucking brain, and it's the same thing with tattooing. But after how long was, like, a year went by before you went at it again?
No, like 3 years.
Was it really that long?
Yeah. So this is fall of 2015. I do 2 tattoos. I eat myself alive. I quit. And then the next summer, or the next spring even, I go back to school full time. I was like halfway through my bachelor's degree, tons of debt, don't take out loans. And so I was like, well, I'll go back and I'll finish my degree. And so I start going to school full time, no childcare, online. So I'm never sleeping. And it's like, I get the high of starting something new for 6 months, and then it's just terrible because I have no childcare. And I'm just staying up all hours of the night to do full-time course load. And so I did that for like a year and a half, I think. And it was fall of 2017. So 2 years later. 2 years later.
And then we hit it hard.
Well, no. So 2 years later, I'm getting my degree in psychology. I have no interest in psychology other than, like, your basic everybody has interest in
at this
psychology.
Point, you don't have interest in anything.
Yeah, my life.
I mean, you do, but nothing that is a
career.
And again, struggling in that limbo. That's the thing about college and going to school, is that you don't know what it's going to be like. It's like, it's too wishy-washy. Like, I had to come up with doing something because I was going to, I didn't have any food.
Yeah.
But it's a different situation, a different problem. It's still a problem. It's a different problem of not knowing what to do, because you had options.
Yeah,
going to school.
It was just lack of purpose, and so Paulie comes up with the idea, because I'm working towards a degree where I have no interest in actually working in the field. Like, I just basically went to the counselor and was like, what's the most versatile degree? Okay, I'll get that one.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like, there was no, real purpose to any of it other than having the degree. And so I'm dying because, like, I just can't balance Sable and going to school, and I'm not making any money, so I can't pay for childcare and, have the time to do this work during the day. So Paulie comes up with the idea of, why don't you start tattooing again? Why don't you, and he came at it, which appealed to me, because in my head, tattooing was like, since it's art, you need to be an artsy person and da-da-da-da. And
No.
I had never drawn or anything. And he's like, no.
Yeah, she had no artistic ability,
background.
skill at all.
I was creative, but never drawing. I know. I don't even know why I say that. That's bullshit. Shut up, Faith.
Yeah,
Anyway.
you're very. That's why I call her the robot. She's very analytical.
Yeah, I'm very, very like practical, very disciplined, very structured to a fault, like extreme. And so he comes at it like a fucking mind ninja. He comes at it and he's like, whoa, blew out everybody's eardrums there. So he comes at it and he's like, no. You're not an artist. You are literally going to take the practical route of learning a trade, and you are going to be a tattoo technician. Like, no, you need to learn how to draw and stuff, but like, you're going to be the person that just kills walk-ins, makes money.
Clean tattoos.
Tattoo technician.
Basic clean tattoos. And
so I'm like, fuck, like I really like didn't want to do it again, but he's just slowly chipping away at me. Just like, oh, you should do it. If you started tattooing, this, if you did this. And so finally I'm like, fucking fine, whatever. Like, fine, I'll learn how to tattoo. And so fall of 2017, I spent like 3 months doing, learning how to set up, break down, drawing. You're giving me, light drawing lessons. And then, you want me to start tattooing, which is non-traditional, probably. Every shop is so different, but
I got her tattooing pretty quickly.
You don't tattoo for 6 months to a year. And he was like, the only way to learn how to tattoo, and since I'm coming at it as being a tattoo technician, he's like, fucking start learning how to tattoo.
Yeah.
And so I did my first tattoo January 7th, 2018. I did a geometric skull, a little bit of black and gray shading.
Yeah.
And he had to like push me off a cliff to do that. Like I kept being like, "Oh no, like let's keep pushing it off."
But we started gaining momentum, and I knew that would happen. I knew once you did your first tattoo, things would snowball. And I was trying to teach her how to think about tattooing. I didn't hover over her. We didn't have a ton of intense lesson time. We had a lot of brain tricking time that I talked to her about how to think about getting, solving the problems that arise in tattooing, whether it's, how to hold the machine, how do you think about that? How do you pull a line? How you think about it? Things like your breath and your focus, things, just overarching things. It was kind of an experiment.
Yeah, so it was a weird apprenticeship because I'm still taking care of Sable full time at this point, and we put her in preschool, so I have 3 hours every morning, and that's for 3 days a week, and that's it. That's all the time I have to do this. In nap time, I can draw, but I can't tattoo or anything. So, the first tattoo comes, and he just leaves. Just fucking leaves. Like, I get set up, I get the stencil on, he's like, cool, and then he leaves. And so I have to do this entire tattoo. And it was kind of, it wasn't a difficult tattoo, but it was kind of larger. It was not a small tattoo. It was all basic lines and dots and stuff. But so he just leaves. And I'm fucking sweating, dying the entire time. And finally, I have to, call him to come back. Like, I finished the tattoo.
Well, I didn't want to hover over you.
Yeah, well, and I'm a question asker.
And I kind of want to push you out into the water, too. And be like, swim or die.
That's literally my entire apprenticeship is swim or die, because the first thing, no pressure, but the first thing he says to me about my apprenticeship is, the only option you have is to get good quick. That's it. That's the only option you have here.
Yeah.
And so I start my apprenticeship being like, I have to get good as quickly as I possibly can. So every single fucking tattoo, I'm sweating bullets, fucking trying to figure this shit out. And he's not giving me...
Fucking work, though, huh?
He's not giving me almost any direction ever. He's doing the mind ninjaing, but I'll go like, so like, how do I, do this? Figure it out, and that's it. Every single thing I ask him is figure it out. And so I fucking figured it out. But it was not, for me, it was not fun. And by the end of my like first stage of my apprenticeship where I'm doing free tattoos, I hated him. Like, I hated him because I was like struggling so hard all the time trying to figure it out. And every time I would be like, hey, can you help? He'd be like, figure it out. And then the shitty thing about tattooing is like, you're not used to that sort of critical feedback on what you're doing all the time. And so, we should stop and reset the camera. Okay. Pause.
Well, 1, 2, 3.
So you're not used to that type of critical feedback. And so that's really hard to learn how to take critical feedback from your husband. Like, I'm washing his clothes, making him food, and he's also telling me my tattoos are complete shit.
Well, let's not paint the picture like I'm some fucking 50s
no, but
husband,
I'm
okay? I'm also working like 14 hours a day.
I was a stay-at-home mom still. Yeah. So that was my job, not, So, it's hard to hear from your husband, like, we would, almost every single tattoo, we would get into a fight. Almost every single one. Like, I would get done, and I wouldn't know how to gracefully take critical feedback. So he would say, and there's like a weird thing with tattooing, like, you're really hard on people. Like, in general, everybody's...
Me? Personally? Oh.
No, like, being an apprentice, people are, it seems like, really hard on you.
But they're not. It just seems that way because you're so emotionally invested in what you're doing that any criticism feels
It feels like they're criticizing you. Like, it takes a while, and some people never get there. It takes a while to separate yourself from your tattoos. Like, Paulie had to point it out to me one day because, like, I would obsess over tattoos that I did. Like, I would sit there and, like, every hour bring up the picture and just fucking beat myself up about tattoos that I did. And finally, he's like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, that your worth is not in that tattoo.
And
that tattoo is not who you are.
And that's what a lot of the arguments was, and why I think there were arguments is because it was me grabbing you metaphorically and being like, hey, it's like this, stop, I'm just trying to shake the other ways of thinking about what you're doing out of your head. It was like a boot camp. It was like a mental boot camp for tattooing.
Tattooing for me was not learning how. Like, my apprenticeship was not learning how to tattoo. My apprenticeship but it was mostly learning how to think.
Learning how to think about tattooing, which is, maybe more of that sort of thing is to come on the podcast.
But yeah,
and how we. How I taught you how to do that, because I think there's something maybe to that that could be expanded upon in the future for other people,
Yeah.
But I want to tell a story about when you tattooed your sister, the fern. So Faith does.
This is my second tattoo, right? Yeah. It was the second round of tattooing 2 years later, and it was my second tattoo.
So it wasn't your second tattoo. That's a weird way of saying it wasn't your second tattoo.
I know. I just I don't like counting that other phase.
So she had gotten a fern that turned out to be rather large. It's on her leg, right?
Yeah.
And in this pretty cool spot. It's a fern that curves around.
It's actually a really cool tattoo.
Yeah, it's a cool tattoo. And because she did it, you guys did it big enough for the spot.
It was. I mean, probably 10 inches long. And for people that know about tattoos, like, Paulie just let me go wild. Like, he just sort of, like, set me free. And, like, there was some guidance, but, like, he would let me just make, it turned out fine, but he would let me make a little bit of bad decisions.
Yeah, because
I didn't know it was bad.
Because I could fix anything that you could possibly do wrong. I could fix it. And if I couldn't fix it, I could turn it into something that the person would be happy that they got that for free.
The TV turned off.
Okay, you want to pause real
let's
quick?
Pause.
You
So,
left the door open.
do
Ha ha.
I have to close it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember where we left off?
So, I'm doing this giant tattoo on my sister.
Oh yeah, so she's doing this giant tattoo, and I take Sable. She's doing it at home because it's her sister, and I leave the house with Sable, and I go to Bumblebee, which is like a play place, and 5 hours later, 5 hours. It took her 5 hours to do the tattoo. She comes to Bumblebee. I wasn't at Bumblebee for 5 hours, but 5 hours later, she shows up with her sister, and they both look like they've just been hit by a car. Faith's hair is all fucked up. She's like red from sweating.
I like can't move my hands anymore.
Her clothes are all fucked up. Hope is like Hope. Faith's sister is like a zombie, just like walking, and it looks like you guys have just been like stranded on an island for 6 months. Yeah, you were really, really, really slow in the beginning, but all the tattoos that you did were fucking pretty good. They were pretty fucking solid.
Yeah, I had no idea. See, and the problem was like my entire apprenticeship of how hard I was on myself is that I only compared my tattoos to Paul Johnson tattoos. So, like, I compared my tattoos to somebody who'd been tattooing for 11 years. So, every tattoo, I mean, I was just like, oh, I'm the worst person in the world.
And
I fucking suck. I'm terrible.
I think the level of intensity in which you attacked tattooing mirrored my level of intensity, and I'm a weirdo.
Yeah, like we basically we do the podcast, we take care of Sable, we work.
Yeah, like people don't normally like go that hard into tattooing, especially during their apprenticeship, because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. But you know, you've been around me so long. I think you just thought that's how it goes.
Yeah,
so
like that's what you had.
That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be absolutely obsessed, you know, through every step all the time. But so let's move on. So
I started tattooing
more and more.
More and more. I was, you know, because I had such a structured system, because I wasn't a traditional apprentice. Like, I only had one period of time to do one tattoo 3 or 4 days a week. And so I was pretty quickly, you know, things went well. Like, pretty quickly, I was booking 3-4 weeks out during my apprenticeship, which is...
I mean, free tattoos.
Yeah,
but
they were free.
Still.
They were free. Yeah, but, like,
people were willing.
You know, I was getting to get tattoo regularly from the start, thanks to mostly Paulie having so many clients that had known me and just wanted to support me.
Yeah, a lot of my clients were like excited. They were like, "Oh, I'll get a little faith tattoo."
Yeah,
you know,
so
even if it looks like shit, I'll get a faith tattoo. You know, they were into it.
And everybody knew the clause of you would fix it if it needed to happen. You know, which is rare in most apprenticeships. Nobody's fixing your tattoo.
Yeah.
So people were willing to take the risk because they're like, fuck it, Paul will fix it.
Yeah, and I'll get a free cover-up over it, you know, for
my next session, Paul will fix it, whatever.
Yeah.
So it went really well, and after 5 months, Atmosphere, the owner of Atmosphere, said I could come in and start charging for tattoos.
Which is crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, so after 5 months, I had a job. Like, I don't know. Everything's so fucking hazy and confusing in the tattoo industry. Like, I'm not sure if
There's no, like, structure to it.
like, I don't know if I got a job offer. It was just like, you can start charging at the shop now.
Yeah.
Because I was doing my free tattoos there at the end. And so that was July that I started tattooing there, and now I've been tattooing there.
Yeah,
for
and now
6 months.
you're having people come to you for a certain style of tattoo, which is really interesting. Which we got to start moving you away from a little bit, just to diversify. But that's still a really good sign.
Yeah, it's been going awesome.
You know,
the universe said yes.
You know, you're having
even
people
though we don't believe in that.
You're having people come into the shop that are requesting you. that, from being online off the website or whatever. So it's going good, but it's never going to stop. This feeling of feeling like you're behind, feeling like you don't know enough, feeling like it's never stops.
It's never gonna end.
So you have to get comfortable in that place.
That's kind of what tattooing has taught me the most, is being comfortable with constantly being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You have to push your skills all the time, and you have to say yes to things that for me, I'm so conservative about things that, I get nervous about kind of everything anyway. But, now I can do, the podcast, no fucking problem, because for the last year, I've been uncomfortable every day of my life. So it's fuck it. Yeah, you want to do something new and be uncomfortable? Yeah, let's do that. And uncomfortable, not physically, in case anybody's confused with that. Just mentally pushing what you think is possible for yourself. And
cool. So that's the story of a little bit of background, and hopefully that gives people a little bit of context who don't know us as much.
Why do you have a podcast on tattooing?
Exactly. So, what could be the big question? What could be the question for people?
So, if you want us to elaborate, this isn't the big question, but if you want us to elaborate on any part of it, comment. Anything you want to hear more about, please comment. We want to create content that you want to listen to. So, whatever you want.
Yeah.
We'll make it.
Here's a big question for first of all, tattoos. What was your story of taking that leap into becoming a tattooist? Because those are always interesting stories. We would love to hear about the stories. We really want to hear from everybody and their personal experiences, because that's how we're going to learn about things. And also, clients, is there something that you always wanted to do that you never pulled the trigger on because of risk, or did you try something and it didn't work? I want to hear about that sort of stuff, I know that I have clients out there that do the thing that was their hobby now for a living, like Alex Pollock.
Oh, yeah.
Alex Owens. He was super into airsoft, and now he works in the industry.
There's such limited, that's not an easy job to get almost, in that there's only so many airsoft companies.
Right. You definitely have to make your own opportunities kind of in that industry, which is exciting, which is cool.
And he basically got it from just being so, we might be assuming things, but he probably got that job because of how passionate and obsessive he was about airsoft, and they saw that, and they were like, oh, he maybe came to them for a job, and they're like, yeah, definitely this guy. He's fucking obsessed with this.
Yeah, I think he's just involved, He's just really interested in all aspects of it, so it worked out for him. So if you have a story like that, let us know. Maybe we'll read it on the podcast. What's our email?
So all of our information's going to be in the show notes, blood, ash, and oil,
or the description below, if you're on YouTube.
Oh. It's not called show notes?
No.
Oh. bloodashandoil@gmail.com. We'll have our Instagram handles there. Please follow us. If you're listening to the podcast on your phone, take a screenshot, share it in your stories, tag us, let other people know about the podcast if you're enjoying it, because that's the only way.
Slut us out.
Whore us out, because that's the only way anybody's going to hear about it is through you guys.
Yeah,
so
and
please share us if you enjoy it.
Rate the podcast.
Yeah, rate
on
it
iTunes.
On
that
iTunes.
Helps a lot.
That helps a lot in other people finding out about it. Leave comments on YouTube, like it, subscribe. That helps, push it up in the awesome algorithm of all social media shit.
Yeah, and if I think we already said this, but if you liked this episode, let us know, and we'll do more of this stuff. We'll probably get more into the personal stories about tattooing when we start having guests on, because that's going to be a great opportunity to talk about those things with another person and have them feedback with their experiences and be able to learn something, because there's two perspectives. But next week we're back to a semi-normal show. I'm not sure what the show's going to be
I
about,
don't
but we
know.
got so many good ideas.
Yeah,
So
and a lot of them are from you guys, and if you've written to us about a question, we're going to be doing an episode on it.
Yeah.
So
'Cause
even
most
if it
of 'em-
hasn't happened, it's in our lineup. So, please tell us what you want to listen to, and we'll make a future episode about it.
yeah. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.